Hi, welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Sorry I had to rush off last time, but duty called. And today I'm going to be finishing chapter 13 and starting with chapter 14, which is entitled Going Home. As I've said before, Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces is an unusual name for this platform, but it comes out of my love for cooking, baking, reading, writing, and being a mother. And as I've said before, later on, I'm going to be featuring some of my own books, and I'm going to be sharing some of my secret recipes with you. And yeah, it should be a fun time cooking and baking. Um, I have to apologize ahead of time because I am not perfect and I will misread some sentences. I will mispronounce words, but I will do my utmost to correct those mistakes. So today we're going to continue reading from Spiritual Messages Channeled Through Me, and it is written by my sister Denise Green. I also have to clarify something that my sister may not be aware of, because my sister is a very adventurous person and has lived in several countries over the years. So she may have missed out on some information. But the lady she spoke about, who was my parents' adversary, actually became very good friends with both my mother and my father. And before that took place, actually, my father once saved her from my mother because she physically, my mother, I should say our mother, is like an onion. She has many layers to her, and she will not argue with people, and she will not attack anyone. However, if my mother is attacked, she will defend herself. And this lady, who was her adversary, actually physically attacked her. And my father ended up saving that woman from my mother, because my mother was giving her what we refer to in Jamaica as a real bossassin. Um, my mother didn't say a word. But anyway, my parents are the type of people that no matter what, no matter how you've wronged them, if you come to them for help, they are going to help you. That's just how my father was, and my mother still is. And like I said, my mother has a lot of layers to her, and her and Denise, they have their thing, and I'm not going to get into that. But there's good and bad in everyone, and my mother had good, and that lady ended up coming to them for help, and they helped her. And it wasn't just her. She tried to ruin my mother, and her daughter tried to ruin my father. But thankfully, they were able to mend fences, and her and my mother became very good friends, and She never referred to my mother as Julia or as Rebecca or as Mrs. Green, um, or Miss Julie. She referred to my mother as Aunt Jewel, which is what my cousins called her, which is what we called her in our early years. And then after my parents or our parents traveled to the Bahamas and came back to Jamaica, um, our dad had a little meeting in which he told us that we had to call our mother Mama and our grandmother Granny because our grandmother was our grandmother and our mother was Mama, and we really didn't want to do that. So anyway, our grandmother ended up becoming Granny, and our mother, who we used to call Aunt Jewel, ended up becoming Mother. My sister Randy started that, and we all started calling her Mother. At first, she hated it, she didn't like it. But after a while, over the years, it became a badge of honor for her, and she didn't like us calling her anything other than Mother. And her friends saw it as a very respectful way for us to refer to her. Um, but anyway, whenever our mother went home to Jamaica to visit, the same old lady that my sister Denise referred to, she would walk up the hill to visit my mother, to catch up on things with my mother, and she always says, Aunt Jewel, what you bring for me? Aunt Jewel, what did you bring me? And whenever she saw me, she always said to me, oh, you're the one with the broken. You the one that always have the broken. Because as a child, I did fall and break my arm. And that's how she identified me, as the one who had the broken arm. She made it seem like my arm was still broken. But yes, her and my mother became very, very, very good friends, and my mother was very good to her. And she, in turn, was very good to my mother in that the friendship they had was invaluable. And she lived to be 99 years old. But I remember that even when she was around 97 years old, and I went to Jamaica to visit my parents, who were retired by that time and spent half of the year there and half here in Canada, she would hobble up the hill with her walking stick to come and visit my mother. And my mother always had a nice drink of something for her by the time she arrived up the hill, because you would hear her calling my mother, or our mother, from down the hill, because our house is on a hill. And it was very nice to watch them sit under the ackee tree, or whatever tree they chose to sit under, and converse about politics, converse about the Bible, converse about church. Yeah, so it didn't take the next generation to heal things. Things were healed in the first generation. And I don't know if my sister Denise just doesn't remember, or if she didn't witness it, or maybe her guides didn't think it was important for her to mention that. But hopefully, in watching this, she will remember. But yeah, like I said, she did live in several countries and may not have been aware or may not have witnessed what I witnessed. Um, so I'm going to leave that at that, but there is something else that I wanted to mention that was brought to my attention by Denise. Um, she has the title of this book spelled with two L's. And every time I enter the title of this book into the comment section or the information section, I always entered it with two L's, but then I would get the little red line signaling that it is a spelling error, and I would go in and put it in with one L. Um, and every time I kept thinking to myself, that's kind of a major mistake to be made. And then I thought to myself, well, Denise must have done that for a reason. And I always said to myself, you know what? Whatever the reason is, it's her reason. And I was prepared to leave it alone. And I was quite surprised that it came up in conversation. And the double L represents the parallel between this physical world and the spiritual world. And she provided me with an entire lesson in that. And I've said on more than one occasion that the English language is a language that condemns us daily. And I now know that it was purposefully designed that way by the fallen angels to keep us in mental slavery and to have us condemn ourselves daily by speaking this English language. They have shortened it in places, they've lengthened it in places, and flipped it around in other places. And so we have a condemning language. Our original language is Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, not Yiddish, but ancient Hebrew. And Denise is teaching herself how to speak that language. And she's also getting some help in learning to speak that language, because the Creator says that He will return to us a pure language, and that is our pure language. That is the language we should be speaking, and that is the language that all of His chosen people will go back to speaking very soon. So I just wanted to clear those things up and to see, Denise, you ask Denise one question or mention one thing, and she will provide you with a cyclopedia on that one little thing. A few years ago, I mentioned to her, what about cannibalism on those slave ships? I didn't know why I asked that question, because I had not read anything previously about it. And when she came back to me with a whole history on how our foreparents were cannibalized by their oppressors. And that led us down a never-ending pathway of information about our history and who we are. And that is Denise. Denise will dig and dig until she gets you the answer. And yeah, but anyway, I'm going to continue with spiritual messages channeled through me. Um, like I said, it was written by my sister Denise Green, and I am just reading it to you and continuing with chapter 13 and then moving on to chapter 14. It is barely 8 o'clock when they ride into town and arrive at the slave pen. Ventise is very uncomfortable, afraid, due to the memories the place holds for her and her children, afraid the memories again become her reality. She sees La Rochelle slaves transport, the wagon that brought her there the first time, and is now terrified. This is Denise speaking right here. I feel the same emotions going through her unborn children. Her nearly 3-year-olds have their own nightmares about that place, memories of the way they wailed as they were pulled apart from each other. Beruze realizes he had not told Ventise about the slaves he had bought in the process of procuring their son. Now he tells her, I bought 9 of the ones that would otherwise likely die in there, the ones no one will buy. She is not sure how to respond to the news of purchased slaves, and so she does not overtly anyway. Not overtly anyhow. She is, however, relieved that Beruze's business in that place is not about her or her children. He continues to explain, I am taking them back with us to help us work on the farm. Don't leave us out here. It's not safe. Some people in that pen said they were taken just as we were taken from home. We can be taken and gone by the time you get back. He knows the way of their world enough to know she is not talking through her perception of fear, but through both their reality, moving him to call out to whomever is inside. A man he does not recognize comes out. Tell La Rochelle I'm here to pick up my 9 purchases. You are the younger white man asks. You are? The younger white man asks. He knows who I am. I am waiting for them. Where are your chains and ropes for them? The man wants to know in order to avoid having to make a return trip to Beruze's wagon to obtain ropes and shackles for securing the newly purchased goods. Don't need any. All right, if they run, they are your problem. Not that they will get far, but they are your problem. Yeah, my problem. Now bring them on out. La Rochelle comes out alone. I see that you found your way to Widow Perez's and conducted business without my input. Yeah, I had a slight change of plan. La Rochelle looks over the family and decides, well done indeed. The slaves he sold to Beruze start to file out slowly in a single line. The 3 men, the 3 women, and the 3 adolescent children. Beruze notices that the second woman in line is the woman who was watching over Abel. She sees Abel recline under one of his mother's arms and thanks her God for smiling down on the boy. Likewise, Beruze analyzes her countenance and think of her good deed being rewarded without either of them knowing of the other's role in the child's life at the time the boy caused him to blindly make a deal for her. This is Denise speaking again. Roles that were performed in the spirit would before they manifested in our material world. Okay. Beruze checks his deeds as La Rochelle calls the name of each feeble slave as one roped around the waist to the next files past him, and at the end of the loading he asks La Rochelle, "How many more have you got like these?" "Just a handful, maybe a half a dozen at the most," La Rochelle casually answers. "Do up the paperwork. I'll take those too." "How are you going to transport them?" La Rochelle, in his shock, wants to know. "Don't worry about that. They are my problem once you receive your money. I will have to change you for the rope. I will have to charge you for the ropes and the chains on them. Remove all the ropes and the chains." "Are you mad?" La Rochelle genuinely questions the odd man's business procedures. "No. How much do you want for the wagon and the team and that team of yours?" "Well, they are a pretty good—" "How much, La Rochelle?" Beruze cuts him off. "I'll take what you think they're worth," now twitching his mouth to scratch his nose, knowing that Beruze always overpays. Out of the magic sack, Beruze pulls payment in exchange for deeds and receipts from La Rochelle. "In all my years of buying and selling, never before has my pen ever been completely empty. Good luck with them." Beruze is ready to go home and take his 2 wagons full of people with him, the last of which to be placed in the second cart. A male in his 20s had to be lifted onto the cart by others. What happened to the third tot in the group, Beruze wants to know. La Rochelle looks at him for an extended period, trying to figure out his motives before answering. "As I said, good luck with your farm hands." "I need at least 2 days' supply of food," he tells La Rochelle. "The local grocer is just over there. It should be opening just about now, but I can sell you a week's supply of potatoes and pork belly for your niggers." He looks at Ventese and now wonders if he should have used a different word, but realizes there is no other word he could use that did not mean the same thing, despite her position in the eccentric Beruze's life. Her position as his favorite slave does not change her status within the tier of society that matters. "Mr. La Rochelle," Beruze cautions him, "if you have any inklings of following me for what you believe is in this sack or on my person, I strongly suggest you get it out of your head before you leave this town." La Rochelle is hit off guard with that piece of advice. He did not expect it and therefore searches for a response. "No need to respond, La Rochelle. Just don't leave town to follow me. I hope I have made myself clear." While he has made himself clear, he is not the reason La Rochelle will not follow him. It is not Beruze that La Rochelle fears, but Ventese. And it is not Ventese of herself whom he so much fears, but the force that surrounds her. He had an experience with her the first night he transported her that shook him to the core, which was why he chose to keep moving through each night of travel, as opposed to resting under the moonlight. He had separated Ventese from the rest of the purchases, dragged her to a nearby tree, threw her to the ground, and attempted to have his way with her. When he exposed himself and attempted to come at her, it was Dureni he saw in the light, with teeth long, teeth strong, teeth ready to devour whatever he had to offer. He got back to the wagon long before Ventese did, and her only reason for not running off was that her children were still on that wagon, forcing her to, instead, run back into his power over her life when he was willing to carry on without her. He now looks at her as though she is the one who is evil, as though she were a devil. Beruze chooses Abel's protector and an adolescent boy to take the reins of the second wagon. With food and milk aboard, he puts the more able-bodied in charge of the not-so-able ones and set off for home. We're going to continue now with chapter 14. Once again, it's titled Going Home. They stop to rest and water the horses at about mid-afternoon. All the new purchases, 15 of them, are still present. Beruze notices the food is hardly touched. He understands why. The slaves think the food is for him. Thus he and Blytis portion the food and serve it in amounts to more than satisfy physical hunger. Blytis warms up milk for the sick young man and puts a little salt in it before serving it to him. She quadruples his burlap bedding and covers him, after which she assigns a female adolescent to take particular care of him during the ride. Once everyone has eaten, Beruze explains to the whole group, "It is not safe for all of us to sleep at the same time once it gets dark. We could be robbed, you could be taken, or any of us could be killed. We will need to sleep in rotation so that we can protect each other. We have traveled for more than 6 hours. None of you is tied. You have gone off to answer nature's call and have all returned. You're all still here. That tells me something. It tells me you want to be here. Since we're all here, we might as well work together." He waits to see their reaction. They're all listening for more of what he has to say, but not all are looking at him because some are not comfortable with eye-to-eye exchange with a white man. The invisible whip still has its desired effect. He knows the reason for their reluctance to have their eyes meet his, and therefore makes his first request. "I need every one of you, everybody, to look at me, please." Not all of them readily meet his request, so he waits for another and another and another, and encourages by adding another please. All eyes are now on him. "My name is Beruze Burnell. I am your master, only on paper in life. I am your friend. You can call me Beruze, Mr. Burnell, or friend." That settled, he makes his second request. "I need 2 new people to take over the second team of horses." All hands go up, including those of the 2 people for whom he is seeking relief. He chooses 2 of the stronger-looking males and makes another request. "I need 6 of you to go to sleep now so that you can stay up later to watch over others who are sleeping." All hands go up except for those he just assigned to take over the reins of the second wagon. He chooses 6, including the young man who is too sick to move. He has a particular address for him. "Don't fight your sleep, but if you are up during the night, then look after the others who are up keeping watch." He feels useful despite his condition. Beruze tells them what to expect. "We have another 4 hours of travel ahead of us today. Once these 6 are rested, another 6 will take a nap so that they can relieve these in the early morning hours. Do I have any volunteers?" All hands go up. Beruze chooses a different 6. They had traveled some more and then made it through the night without incident. Beruze does a head count in the morning. Everyone is still present. He looks at the 3 strongest looking black men and asks, "Why are you still here?" He waits for an answer and waits. Only one finally answers, "Massa, you don't tie us and you feed us. Why should we leave? Where would we go?" Not wanting to push them too far out of their comfort zone, Beruze ignores the term massa. In the response he finally receives from the one who appears to be the bravest of the 3, Beruze would refer to him as brave from henceforth. "All right, well, today you feed yourselves. See that river? See this net? pulling his net off his wagon. I expect you to have fish in it to feed all of us when you get back. And you too, go with Brave. They walk off like three grown men. Free men going off on a fishing trip for the day, visibly happy to be given a productive task over which they have control. Beruze calls after them. Plenty of fish! Big ones! A few campfires are going. Baked biscuits are being prepared. Fish is being roasted. Tea is being drunk from metal cans. If it were modern day society, one would get the impression that a group of black people are out camping with the odd white man who hangs around with black people. They pack their goods and are ready to move out for a second day of travel. There is that peacefulness about the day that simply cannot last. Otherwise, this place would not be planet Earth. Nonetheless, in the current peacefulness of the day, they continue homeward. By mid-afternoon next day, Beruze is exhausted. He falls asleep, stretched out on a piece of burlap under a tree, and does not seem to be able to get up to deliver instructions. But none is really needed during their first official rest stop for the day. The group works as a team, even tending to the children when Ventese is occupied with tending to the sick young man or helping with the preparation of the food. Beruze gets his delivered to him by the head fisherman, Brave. They are using their natural survival skills, trapping wild chickens, geese, rabbits, harvesting wild onions, scallions, berries, honey, etc., to add variety to the food they have cooked to last for the day. Except for the sick young man who is placed under a tree beside Beruze, the slaves are no longer tired looking. If La Rochelle saw them now, he would realize he could have gotten top dollar for all but one. He would be inclined to want to buy them back, but not a single one is for sale, as we will soon find out. Luckily for them, they all happen to be in the clear when a posse of 4 comes along looking for runaways and looking to take what they deem to be runaways. Beruze musters energy he did not know he had to let it be known that he has documentation for every single 2-footed chattel present and that not one is for sale. All of his 2-footed chattels' survival instincts kick in. They're enjoying relative freedom and are not about to go without a fight, even if it means taking a life in the process, a white one, though it may be. The 4 white men with their rifles, seeing that this set of niggers is of a combative mindset and are prepared to willingly fight alongside their white master, decided to move on. Beruze is not convinced that he has seen the last of them, nor is anyone else who is knowledgeable enough to know the ways of the world in which human beings are deemed to be not quite human, in order that they be exploited in the most horrid of conditions by other human beings for material profit. Therefore, at the next town, Beruze orders all his charges to remain in the wagon while he purchases enough rifles and ammunition to start his own small army. Denise is speaking here. Please allow for a little overt drama on the part of the writer. My part. Actually, he purchases only 6 rifles and 2 handguns, but with a significant amount of ammunition. The housekeeper wants the sale. The shopkeeper wants a sale, but not badly enough that he would sell to someone who has a mind to use deadly force against his fellow white beings, as in Beruze's case. Beruze, sensing the shopkeeper's reluctance, plants the seed he wants to grow in his mind by explaining quite convincingly, them Indians hiding out in the bushes will have something coming to them if they are foolish enough to launch an attack on me. True enough, Indians have spied on him, both going and coming, the forest teeming with them at times, but none has ever molested him. It was his own kind that threatened to take his people. It's interesting they use the word molested because in today's society, molested means something completely different than how we use molested. Molested can mean trying to pick a fight, trying to beat up on somebody, as opposed to what it means in present day society. So it's interesting seeing that word there. He chooses to camp early this night and takes the time not used for travel to select men who can fire the guns with good aim. He gives one of the revolvers to Ventese, and the other he gives to the woman who made herself protector of Abel. The three fishermen and the first adult male to take the reins of the second team of horses each gets a rifle to keep near them at all times. The fifth and sixth Beruze chooses to keep up front beside him in the lead wagon. He has strict instructions for using the weapons. We have about 4 to 5 more days of travel. Anything can happen between now and then. We now have rifles to help us hunt for food and to protect us. If the situation arises wherein you need to shoot to protect any one of us or yourselves, make sure you leave no one who can testify against you before the law. Do you understand me? Apparently everyone understands because no one is asking him for clarification. He continues to give instructions. From now on, whenever you leave the campsite to dip in the river, to gather food, wood, or to hunt, you are to go with at least 2 others, and at least one of you with a gun. Do you understand? They all understand. That too. No request for clarification. They all understand that too. No request for clarification. With that, he starts asking for volunteers for the night watch rotation. As on the previous 2 nights, he has no shortage of volunteers. The sheriff in Beruze's hometown has not forgotten about the envelope Beruze left in his care. He could not forget, seeing that the letter is always in view whenever he opens his desk drawer. He had promised that he would open the envelope only if Beruze was not back within a week, and a week had gone. He takes his seat by his desk, opens the drawer, sees the envelope, pauses, and decides to open it. He reaches for the letter opener and positions the letter. The master of time, who is God of all, decides it is not yet time to open the letter, and therefore intervenes. A young man barely out of his teens runs into the sheriff's office to report. "Sheriff, come quickly. They are duking it out in the streets this time. I swear one is going to kill the other." The sheriff does not waste time asking who or what or why. He knows it's 2 brothers who refuse to shoot each other, but don't seem to mind beating each other almost to death to settle a score over accusations of swindling. They are not young men. They could very well be grandfathers. Whenever the sheriff gets involved, they swear the matter is settled. As far as each is concerned, the other does not exist. The main problem with that peace treaty is that they both drink at the same bar. After their day's work, they enter the establishment peaceably enough, quietly, and determined never to have anything to do with the other. However, after a few drinks, the war that is forever festering resumes. This time, as most other times, the bartender threw them out before they came to blows, insisting they will not be the destruction of his livelihood. And in the process of their being thrown out, they swear that if they were not brothers, one would be dead by now, for being a low-down thieving scoundrel. The sheriff and his deputy are now occupied with getting them back to the jail so they can sleep off the battle in separate cells and be rejuvenated for the next one they they are sure to have. This evening, however, the sheriff does not focus on the brothers' relationship of tomorrow. This evening he tells them that he aims to have a quiet dinner with his family and that at least he does not have to worry about being called away from his dinner or out of bed to keep them apart. The rifles has come in handy for Beruze and his clan. They have been able to hunt so much that they are now preserving wild hogs and other game meat, along with fruits and vegetables. They have hunted and gathered so much that Beruze decides to purchase a third team and wagon at the next town. He stocks up on preserved jars, coarse salt, dye, cheesecloth, and other necessities for canning, smoking, and pickling. The abundance of food collected in the few hours they stop each day to hunt and gather and rest the horses. The trip that should have taken them 5 days, 6 at the most, has now gone to 9 days, and they are still at least 3 days from the place Beruze and his family call home. They travel homeward, but there does not seem to be any rush to get there. More and more time is spent each day fishing and hunting and gathering and cooking and preserving and making and sewing, that the group is now at home in the woods. So at home that they run away from. So at home that the runaway whom Beruze had met while on his way to retrieve his wife and children, after secretly observing the dynamics of the group, comes out of the woods to offer himself to Beruze. Blytis is visibly happy to see that he has managed to maintain his freedom and welcomes him like family, serving him food as one serves a welcome hungry brother. The young man who was at death's door is now able to walk on his own and is helping where there is a need. He spends a lot of time teaching Mabel and Abel how to sing, even making his own musical instruments of wood. It was he who last night quietly alerted the night watch of movement around the supply wagon and thus foiled the plan of thieves. As with all groups, there are power struggles and cliques in this one. However, for the most part, the group is cohesive, sharing a history and a need of kinship that binds all members with a strong sense of duty to protect and care for each other. It would take 3 tries before the sheriff in Beruze's hometown finally gets around to opening the envelope Beruze left in his care. It is a different day, but the warring brothers are in jail for the same reason, refusing to shoot each other but willing to duke it out to the death of one or the other. It is after threatening them with another night to be spent in jail while he goes home to a good meal that the sheriff finally gets enough peace to read through Beruze's will, which directs the sheriff to Beruze's buried treasure, but it also instructs the sheriff to wait for a year before taking action unless Blytis were alive and he were to disappear. Blytis got back yesterday without Beruze. The sheriff considers the contents of Beruze's statement. This claim to witnessing the murder of Dreyfus Tobin, Dreyfus' list of slaves supposedly stolen by Blytis, and the fact that all the information he has is in Beruze's handwriting. He suspects that Beruze likely concocted the stories in his will as retaliation for the business relating to Blytis. Even so, the sheriff feels that the seriousness of the accusations warrants a visit to Blytis. Of course, he does not reveal any of the contents of the will. He simply wants confirmation that Beruze is not dead. If Beruze is alive, then he can take a verbal statement from him when he returns and investigate further. If Beruze has vanished into thin air or is dead, he will follow the directions stipulated in the will. Blytis becomes incensed at the mention of Beruze's name touching his temple repeatedly where his bruise is now a flat, dark spot. He brings it to the sheriff's attention. Do you see this? This compliments of Beruze Burnell. He wants Beruze tried for kidnapping, hanged for battery, and tortured for torturing. The story that Blytis paints for the sheriff about being Beruze's victim leaves no doubt in the sheriff's mind that Beruze is alive and well and is on his way home. That being the case, the sheriff figures another week's wait to interview Beruze is a better alternative to organizing a party to go digging for something that may be a mean-spirited retaliatory fabrication for a business deal that left Beruze sorely displeased. Now that the sheriff has left Blytis home, the scoundrel has time to think. It's that blasted will of Beruze. I think this is Denise speaking here. It's that blasted will of Beruze's that was his real purpose for coming here. If he had real proof, he would have arrested me. Oh no, okay. So this is it's in italics because it's Blytis speaking. It's that blasted will of Beruze's that was his real purpose for coming here. If he had real proof, he would have arrested me. I can't very well just kill a sheriff, can I? Beruze is the one I need to kill. That would mean waylaying him. That could take days of living in the bushes. No, I'll wait until he gets back. Getting rid of a particular irritant, he concedes, is a much better alternative to waiting around for Beruze. Find the original logbook and burn it. Blytis waits until dark, and with a box of candles and flint makes his way over to Beruze's cabin. With one lit candle after another, sometimes two at a time, he searches the place from top to bottom. He now knows Ventese is educated in at least two languages, because he finds poems and songs she has written in her native language or languages and has translated into English, and vice versa, and he finds lessons she teaches the children in English and what could be two or three other languages. Hence, he also knows the children are advanced for their age in their writing and math skills. However, his focus right now is on finding the purported logbook. Exhausted by the search and limited to the light of the moon and candles, he resorts to a much simpler alternative to finding the actual logbook. Burn it down. Untying his horse from the tree under which the original log is buried, Blytis mounts his stallion and rides away from the magnificent fire he leaves behind as it illuminates the dark and destroys the structure that Beruze calls home. The sheriff is the one to tell Beruze that he no longer has a house. Beruze makes the connection almost immediately. He would have been surprised if Blytis had not done something of the sort, which was why he buried the logbook in the first place. I want to talk with you about your will and the allegations you made about Blytis. After pausing to look at Beruze's entourage sitting in the wagons, congesting the street in front of his jail, he adds, I know this is not good timing, but I need to get to the bottom of what is going on between you two. Sheriff, a familiar young man interrupts. You gotta come quick. Those two are at it again, with knives this time. Sheriff? It's the young man who had interrupted the sheriff the first time. He attempted to read Beruze's will. He is a grandnephew of the two warring brothers who for weeks has been trying to keep the two old men alive. I will drop by your place tomorrow, the sheriff tells Beruze. It's time to get to the bottom of this with all of you. Beruze, since retrieving his family, was never a hurry to get home. Beruze, since retrieving his family, was never in a hurry to get home. And now that he is aware that his cabin has been burnt to ashes, he feels now more than ever that his home is wherever. Therefore, the stop he makes to see Blytis really does not come as an inconvenience to him, but rather as an opportunity to make a visit that he would be making nonetheless. He takes his full entourage to Blytis' house and again foregoes a formal announcement by Blytis' help. Blytis rodent! Blytis rodent! He bellows from the front yard to make his presence known. Blytis steps out of the house and onto the porch, shotgun brandished to conveniently end the life of this menacing intruder. But is now lost for words and action at seeing 6 rifles trained on him, and by what he considers to be untrained animals. He realizes if I had not been in such a rush to blow his effing head off, I could have taken my aim from inside. His biggest regret on returning home now haunts his brain. I should have hidden my money. Should have taken it out of the safe. I should have hidden the bloody gold coins I took from the dead fool's cabin. Unarmed, Beruze stands between 1 gun and 6. Drop it. Nice and slow, he tells the cold-blooded murderer. Those niggers would never shoot me. I am going to see every one of them whipped to the death for taking up arms against me. That can happen only one of 2 ways, rodent. You live through this standoff, and if you do, the sheriff believes your word against mine. You didn't burn the original. You didn't burn the original. That's how it's written. The news of the original pulls Blytis from his hardline stance. He sighs a breath of exhaustion and lowers his weapon before he demands, Beruze Brunel, what do you want from me? I want you to drop the effing thing and slowly step away from it. He does as he's told, while still looking for an opportunity to gain the upper hand in the situation. Beruze steps forward and picks up the gun. Now I want you to be a good host and open the door for me. The sarcasm grates on Blytis' nerves, but it is not the greatest of his worries that he bears it. Digests it with the hope of a transfer of power between himself and this tormentor. Get going, Beruze orders. Blytis' servant wants to help him as they walk past her standing in the doorway of the dining hall. But her training to keep out of white man's affairs keep her standing with her hands cupping her jaw. She dares not move unless she gets an order from either of the superior beings. Her inaction is a benefit to Blytis and also a curse for him. Had her training in serving been different, she might have been able to summon help for him. Had she been able to summon help for him, his secrets being a cold-blooded murderer and a slave thief would be significantly more difficult for him to conceal. Beruze would not be the only source he would need to heal. Beruze would not be the only sore he would need to heal. To your office, Blytis, Beruze orders him. Beruze was prepared for what he came to get. From the back of his waistband, he pulls out 4 empty burlap bags and drops them on the floor. Open it! He motions to the safe with the gun. Blytis looks at the sacks and then at Beruze. This can't be happening, it can't be. And tries to convince himself that he is not about to lose all of which he has labored, all of which he has murdered, all for which he has risked his life at sea, all for which he lives. In a state of disbelief, he fills one bag after another with banknotes, feeling things cannot possibly get any worse. But Beruze delivers another blow while beckoning with his chin to the prized possessions Blytis keeps on the lowest shelf. Oh my goodness. You're going to pile all of your slaveholding documents into two of those wine crates and then put them into the wagon you are going to give to me. Beruze is not done. When the sheriff stops by tomorrow, you can tell him that the horses and wagon are your neighborly contribution to my rebuilding my life here. Are we clear, Blytis? Blytis? The only response that the shell of a man can give is a nod of defeat as he slowly removes the first bottle of wine from the nearest crate. Suicide looks good to him, but he won't do it, not because he does not want to, but because he can't. The master of his evil mind is not disposed to giving him a premature out. Oh my goodness. This is Denise speaking here. I will not leave you with the impression that Blytis Roding cannot do other than what his master evil tells him. He can use his own free will to rebel against evil, the same as evil rebelled against the God of good who created him. Were Blytis to rebel against evil, it does not necessarily mean he is doing so to choose the source of good. His revolt simply means that he is exercising his free will in his evil state, and that he is at war with his evil God. Redemption is still open to him nonetheless. He can earn his way back to the Creator by utilizing his crack of light, as explained by Honoru to Dreyfus, the night before Blytis murdered Dreyfus. Though it would take him more than this lifetime. That is his evil God will, not to let him out of his unentangled, or out of his unenlightened condition. Neither will his evil God allow for a rebellion against himself. Instead, he will nurture Blytis' will to live in service to him by continually showing Blytis all the good things in store for him, all the good things that are just out of his reach, things he will have if only until he has no further use for Blytis as Blytis Rodin. Then he will allow Blytis to be frustrated and disillusioned in never getting the things that are just out of his reach and never keeping the things he does get. Consequently, Blytis will refuse to do evil's bidding, and evil will as a result take pleasure in squashing Blytis' wasted effort at rebellion. But in that wasted effort to rebel, Blytis, the cold-blooded murderer, can, if he so chooses, turn his focus to that crack of light that, in response to Blytis' desire for it, will expand enough for him to harness more of it the next time his evil God sends him here to earth on assignment. Although he may not be redeemed his next time around, he can put himself that much closer to his original source, the source he served before he rebelled alongside evil. And that concludes the reading of chapter 14. We will pick it up again next time. Chapter 15, Home Again. If you've enjoyed your time with me, and even if you didn't enjoy your time with me, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Baruch and Shalom.